I want you to think about a question you closed this week. Not a hard one necessarily, just one that came up in a meeting, got a few answers around the table, and got closed because the meeting was ending and the next slot was a week away. You have closed a question exactly like that in the last 5 working days. Every leader listening has. Here is what I want to ask about it. Was the best answer in the room? Because there is a good chance it was not. Somewhere on your team, there may have been a better answer than any one of the ones you heard. And it was not ready at the hour. It needed the evening. It finished forming that night after the person had time to actually work the question. And then it had nowhere to go. There is no slot in your organization where an answer that arrives on Wednesday can enter a decision that closed on Tuesday. So the answer either interrupted you in a hallway or it quietly died with the person who formed it. That is the subject of this episode. Your organization decides at the speed of its meetings, and everything it knows that moves slower than an hour is invisible at the moment of deciding. And I want to name who pays for that first, because it is a specific group of people. Every organization has deliberate processors, people whose thinking is thoroughly, precisely, and it is because it is not instant. People who process explicitly, who check the pieces before they commit to the whole, and who will give you the most complete answer at the table if you give them until the morning. I am one of them, and I have written about why. When every question opens and closes inside the same hour, those people get recorded as having had nothing to say. The organization loses the answer, and then, worse, it writes down a wrong conclusion about the person. And notice what that means at the scale of your whole organization, because this is bigger than one meeting. If judgment is becoming the working skill at every level, and I have argued across this whole series that it is, then the speed at which a person can produce a read in a room is now standing in for the quality of their judgment. Those are different things. You know they are different things. You have promoted people who are brilliant in the room and wrong in the quarter. And you have lost people who are quiet in the room and right in the quarter. The meeting format is making that trade for you every hour without ever being asked to. Last episode, I gave you 3 changes to what gets written down about people. This episode is the second lane of my cognitive translation protocol, the process interventions. And they change something different. When your organization is allowed to decide and what a decision has to leave behind. 3 changes. Each one lands on an artifact you already own, meeting record, the agenda, and most importantly, the decision log. And all 3 share one mechanism. And it is a mechanism your organization already trusts everywhere else. Asynchronous communication. Written work arriving across time, counting the same as speech in a room. Your program teams already run this discipline, by the way. If you have ever kept a RAID log on a program, risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies, kept current week after week, you already know the shape of what I'm about to describe. None of this is exotic. That is the point of this whole arc. The discipline exists. It just never got applied to the artifacts your decisions actually run through. So let me give you the 3. The first is signal persistence. And the artifact is your meeting record. Somebody on your team says something in a meeting that matters. Not a decision, not an action item, a read. The forecast looks soft. The vendor demo felt brittle. The mid-market consumers will not understand the new pricing. Your minutes do not capture it, because minutes capture decisions and action items, and that is all they were ever built to do. 3 weeks later, when the thing the read named actually happens, the room half remembers that somebody said something, and you go digging through old decks and threads trying to find it. You have run that dig. It fails because the read was never written anywhere in the first place. The change is a watch list. 1 line per read. What was said, who said it, and the date. It lives with your minutes. And the note taker you already have owns it. Let me make that concrete, because a watch list is easier to hear than to imagine. A real one, 3 months in, sounds like this is when you read it back. March 4th, Priya. The renewal forecast assumes both enterprise logos auto-renew, and neither has confirmed. March 11th, Daniel. The support ticket volume on the new bill doubled in 2 weeks. March 25th, Priya again. Pricing migration emails are going to the wrong contacts at 4 accounts. That is the whole artifact. 3 lines like that a week, maybe 5. Nothing in it is a decision. Every line in it is something your organization knew with a name and a date attached, sitting where the next meeting will actually see it. Compare that to what your organization holds today. 3 weeks after a read was spoken. Try it right now. Think of something someone flagged in a meeting last month and try to recall the actual sentence. What you will get back is a summary of an impression of a sentence. Somebody was worried about the renewal. Somebody had concerns about the vendor. The specificity is gone. The date is gone. And half the time the name is gone too, which means the read cannot be checked, weighed, or credited. The watch list holds the read as it was said, on the day it was said, with the name on it. That is the entire difference between an organization that remembers what it knew and one that remembers that it knew something. And here is the part that matters for the late answer from the opening. The watch list takes the lines after the meeting too. A read that arrives in a writing on Wednesday goes on the list exactly the way a comment made in the room does. Arriving late stops meaning arriving nowhere. What does it cost you? 1 line on a template and 1 announcement. Reads that arrive after the meeting go to the watch list, and they will be read there. The first few weeks are the real expense, because your team will test whether the list is real. The first time something written there shows up in a decision, the testing stops. The second intervention is pacing and timing controls. And the artifact is your agenda. Here is the uncomfortable fact about your agenda. Every question on it opens and closes inside the same hour, and nobody chose that. An agenda records topics and times. It has never had a place for a close date. So the hour became the deadline for every answer, automatically, forever. And the answer that needs longer than the hour loses by format. Not because it was worse, because it was slower. That change is a decision window. A question opens when it is stated, and it closes at a stated time. And those are 2 separate written lines. Opens Tuesday in the leadership meeting, closes Thursday at noon. An answer that arrives inside the window goes in writing to the named owner of the question. And it carries the same weight as an answer said out loud at the table. Let me play one out. Tuesday, your leadership meeting, someone asks whether the platform migration can land before the December freeze. The room has opinions. The person who actually knows, the staff engineer who would have to check 11 months of job history, says something careful and non-committal, because that is what an honest person says when they have not checked yet. Under the old agenda, that question closes at 10:58 with the room's best guess. Under the window, the question closes Thursday at noon. Wednesday at 9 in the evening, a 2-paragraph answer arrives. It can land, but only if 2 specific jobs move first, and here they are. That answer did not exist on Tuesday. It was never going to exist on Tuesday. The window is the only reason it exists at all. And notice what the person answering got to choose. The form. 2 paragraphs in a chat. Because that is what this answer needed. Another answer might need an email, or a 1-page document, or a short deck. All of those channels already run in your organization. The window is what makes an answer arriving through them count. The cost here is real, and I want to be honest about it. Decisions that used to close Tuesday now close Thursday, on purpose. You are trading 2 days for the answer that could not have existed inside the hour. Some questions genuinely have to close in the room, and those keep closing in the room. The window is for the rest, which is most of them. Now, if you are running a fast organization, you may be hearing this as a tax on speed. So let me say the thing about speed directly. Look honestly at the questions that closed in your last leadership meeting and ask how many of them were actually urgent. Most of them closed at the hour because the hour is when the meeting ended. That is not speed. That is scheduling. The genuinely urgent questions keep their in-room close. And the window costs them nothing. What the window changes is the questions that were never urgent to begin with. The ones that got an hour because the calendar handed them one. And for those, closing 2 days later with the right answer is faster then closing on time with the wrong one and reopening it in the quarter. What stops happening? The answer that needed a night makes it into the decision it was formed for. The deliberate processor on your team now has a written Wednesday answer on the record, where before the record showed nothing from them. And silence at the table stops being read as having nothing to add. Because until the window closes, an unanswered question is just still open. The third intervention is decision traceability, and the artifact is your decision log, or your minutes if you did not keep one. Notice what the first two interventions just did. Your decisions now take it in reads across days, in writing, through more than one channel. That is what you wanted. And it raises a question a serious leader should ask. How do I trust a decision I did not watch being made? The answer is 3 lines, written at the moment a decision closes. The reads the decision use by name and date, which the watch list hands you. The interpretation the room settled on, and the decision itself with its owner and the date. Read aloud. For a real shape decision, it sounds like this. Decision. Renew the vendor for 1 year inside of 3. Owner, the COO. Closed April 12th. Reads used. Priya's March 4th forecast line. Daniel's March 11th ticket volume line. Interpretation. The room read the renewal risk as a product problem, not a pricing problem. That is the whole record. 15 seconds to write. And 6 months later, when the renewal is being second-guessed, nobody has to excavate a 4-month thread to find out why your organization did what it did. The chain is on paper. What was known, what it was taken to mean, and what was decided. If the failure repeats, you can see which step produced it. A read that never arrived, an interpretation that did not follow from the reads, or a decision that ignored both. The discipline is one rule. The decision is not closed until the lines exist. That is a rule a leader can state once and a note taker can hold. Now, one more thing these 3 changes buy you, and it did not exist 5 years ago. Your organization is already buying AI tools that summarize, answer questions, and write briefs. Those tools return only what got written down. A decision made in a room and closed in an hour gives them nothing, because the reasoning was spoken and speech leaves nothing to read. Run these 3 inventions for 2 quarters and look at what those tools can suddenly do for you. The watch list, the window answers, and the 3 inline records are exactly the kind of material that read well. When a question comes back, the answer gets pulled up instead of reconstructed. The tools were never the point, but the record you build for your people is the record they run on. Before I close, I want to give credit where the thinking comes from, because you have already been taught most of it. Daniel Kahneman's fast and slow thinking is probably on your shelf right now, and it earned its place. The fast automatic answer and the slow deliberate one are real, and the most decision failure is taking the first when you needed the second. And there is a story Michael Mauboussin tells about asking Kahneman what single practice most improved decisions, and Kahneman's answer was a decision journal. Write down at the moment of deciding what you decided and what you expected. Here's what I want you to notice about all of that teaching. Your organization taught its leaders as a personal skill, and the meeting format kept its one speed. The decision window is slow thinking as a property of the agenda instead of the leader. The 3-line record is the decision journal kept by the organization instead of one disciplined individual. The discipline existed. It was just living in the wrong place, in heads, instead of in the artifacts. Let me bring this back to the person from the opening, because the 3 interventions look like process, and they are actually about a person you employ right now. The one whose answer finished forming that night. Run the 3 changes and follow what happens to them. Their read goes onto the watch list with their name and their date. Their Wednesday answer arrives inside a window and counts the same as anything said at the table. And when the decision it fed gets audited a quarter later, the 3-line record shows their read arriving, being weighed, and being right or wrong on its merits. You did not coach them to speak up more. You did not make the meeting longer. You changed 3 artifacts, and the organization started receiving what that person was producing all along. So here is the operating brief spoken. The moment. A question that matters is about to close because the meeting is ending. and the best answer on your team has not finished forming yet. The default, and you will recognize it. You close the question anyway, because the meeting is where the decisions happen. The real answer shows up Wednesday as a hallway comment, gets a nod, and goes nowhere. And when the risks get named shows up in the quarter, the reconstruction starts from minutes line that says approved. The redesign, one artifact this cycle, your choice of 3. A decision window on one recurring meeting. The open and the close as 2 written lines. A watch list for reads, 1 line each, owned by the note taker you already have. Or the 3-line record at every close. Each one is your organization deciding asynchronously on an artifact it already owns. And the Monday test, which is the whole ask this week. On the next agenda, you send, for the one standing meeting you run, give a single question, it's 2 lines. Opens in the meeting, closes Thursday at noon. Nothing else changes this week. Just watch what arrives on Wednesday. If you want the full argument in writing, the essay is on the site with the watch list, the window, and the 3-line record laid out next to what each one costs. And the framework page renders the full map of my cognitive translation protocol. 9 interventions, 6 failure dimensions, 3 lanes. The environment lane, the last one, is where this series goes next. If this episode gave you something you can use on Monday, subscribe to the Substack. That is where each week's essay lands first, and is the one place I ask you to follow. The architecture is yours to design, both the architecture of how your organization decides and the architecture of when it is allowed to.